Threads is an infamous film that originally aired on the BBC in September 1984. It was repeated once, and only once, before swiftly being banned from airing until October 2003, due to its harrowing content. At the time, it sparked major public debate, with live TV panels openly discussing just how horrific, graphic, and all-round disturbing the film was.
We have had one or two people, I'm sorry to say, who've rung up in great despair. In fact, one even threatening to commit suicide. Now, whether that was a real threat, I don't know.
Some of the nearly 600 extras used in the film were treated to an early preview screening, and, well, I'll let their reaction to the film speak for itself.
Honestly, I didn't think I would have reacted like this, but I just couldn't help it. There's just going to be nothing after, is there?
I've got 5 children, and the thought of them suffering in that sort of manner, no, it's just...
More recently, it hit the streaming service BritBox in early 2021, only to be quietly removed once again. With escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine, the streamer decided its contents were, once more, too upsetting. Time and time again, this film is banned or pulled from airing, and it's frequently listed as one of the most disturbing films ever made. After watching it through twice now, I can safely say that this hype isn't exaggerated. Threads is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful and disturbing movies I've ever witnessed.
What's the point of wasting food on people who are going to die anyway?
In a similar vein to films like Schindler's List, I think it's actually a very important film that everyone should watch at least once in their lives. Once is all you really need for it to leave a very strong, lasting impression. Certain friends I have had to turn off the film halfway through. Let's do a podcast on Threads.
Go
and watch Threads.
No. Don't do it. Don't do it.
It's where we're going.
And I too found myself, for the first time in basically ever, actually having to pause the movie, take a short break, get some food, and come back to it. And that's rare for me. I struggle to get scared or disturbed by TV and film, well, fiction stuff. But I think that's where Threads blurs the line. It doesn't feel like a fiction. So why exactly am I talking about this movie from over 40 years ago? And what even is the plot? What can be so upsetting for so many people? Well, the other day, I, as many do, made the mistake of clicking on one singular clickbait headline about a potential World War III, only for my feed to be flooded with article after article of how we're all going to die. I know, cheery stuff. These articles are everywhere. So common, in fact, that the idea of a nuclear attack has almost become background noise. It's never been a fear that I've really had. When you're constantly exposed to something extreme, it stops feeling extreme at all. Nuclear war becomes just another headline in your feed, another thing to scroll past. Your brain dulls the reaction, files it away. At a certain point, it isn't fear anymore, it's just noise. Because in school, you learn it at such a young age that the story's kind of simple. World War I, World War II, the Cold War happened, then the Berlin Wall fell, and then everyone kind of chilled. But I can safely say, now, after watching Threads, that illusion is gone. The idea of a nuclear bomb truly terrifies me. As I've mentioned, what struck me immediately about this film is just how real it felt. And I think it hit me harder than I expected because I was that weird kid who was obsessed with old 70s and 80s TV shows, Bagpuss, Button Moon, Rainbow, classic Doctor Who, and as much as I love all of those, at the same time, old things always slightly unsettled me a bit too. There's something slightly off about them. A tone, a texture, a reminder that you're looking at a different world to the one you live in. Threads especially depicts a parallel timeline. Before I was even born, when watching it, I can only think, how would my family have coped back then? My granddad and my dad as a kid, what would have happened to them in the 80s? You see, most of the programmes that I've consumed of this era have that very particular BBC feel. RP accents, slight theatrical performances, that somewhat transatlantic voice that doesn't really belong to anyone you actually know. Threads doesn't have any of that. From the very first scene, Threads is about normal people. Very, very normal people.
Well, what time is it?
There's been further fighting in Iran
No,
between
half-time
government
scores will win in a minute.
Come out here for a drive. We're surrounded by all this countryside and all you can think about is football.
The couple at the start of the film, Ruth and Jimmy, feel immediately recognisable. They're not symbols, they're not written characters, they're young, awkward, a bit annoying at points, and quite sweet. They argue about money, about work, about pregnancy. They live in cramped houses, deal with disapproving parents, and worry about things that, in the grand scheme of things, feel quite small. And that is exactly the point. Because while all of this is happening, the film keeps cutting away to the wider world. News reports, international tensions, political developments, but never in a dramatic way. It is once again background noise, the kind of thing you half listen to while making a cup of tea. All of Threads 2 is shot and edited like a documentary. Handheld cameras, real locations, natural on-set lighting, nothing is beautified. Nothing is framed to impress. The camera doesn't guide you or comfort you, it just exists, as if it's recording events rather than trying to tell its own story. That feeling is reinforced by the narration and the title cards, calmly feeding you dates, statistics, consequences, not emotionally, but clinically. Like some sort of public information film that's gone terribly wrong. The accents matter too, like this isn't a small point, this is really what makes the film.
Yeah, peace offering. Not much smell to it though.
Proper Sheffield accents, regional voices, people who sound like people you actually know, not actors performing working class, but neighbours, parents, friends. Nothing is heightened, nothing is dramatised. It's no surprise to me that the screenplay was written by Barry Hines, a frequent collaborator with the likes of Ken Loach. Producer and original creator of the idea, Mick Jackson, frequently talks in interviews about how his aim was to ground everything in scientific fact. He wanted the whole film to be rigid and real.
It was as scientific and as unpartisan as I could possibly make it. I had a citation for everything.
Which is why the government announcements in the film are actually real.
That were only to be used in the immediate run-up to a nuclear war.
They were shown at one point on a panorama show.
If anyone dies while you are kept in your fallout room, move the body to another room in the house.
And he managed to get hold of these tapes and use them in Threads.
Then you should bury the body for the time being in a trench or cover it with earth.
And it's exactly that realism that makes what comes next so difficult to watch. The build-up to the dropping of the bomb is so extremely ordinary. The lack of music and in its place the whirring of a siren is so much more effective in this case. Escalation happens through politics. Throughout the first 50 minutes of the film, we keep cutting to government committees discussing casualty projections, emergency planners calmly acknowledging that their preparations are inadequate, public information films offering advice to the people of Sheffield. At one point, a government worker openly admits that, in the event of a nuclear strike, there will be no meaningful medical response. The system knows it will fail, and continues anyway, because what else can it do? This is where Threads quietly diverges from your generic disaster movie. There's no illusion of control for us, the audience, nor control for the characters on screen. When the bomb does eventually drop, it isn't cinematic. There's no heroic sacrifice, no last-second escape, no spectacle designed to thrill. Instead, the film presents it with a kind of indifference. Buildings flatten instantly, skin burns, people vaporize mid-sentence. Characters that we've been following throughout the first half of this movie, like Jimmy, just disappear. Like Ruth, we never hear from him again. We can only imagine his fate, probably buried under rubble or vaporized. And then, almost cruelly, the film just moves on. No slow emotional release that's so commonplace in these types of films, just cause and effect. This is where many viewers would naturally expect the film to end. After all, we're roughly an hour in, but Threads is only just beginning. Most post-apocalyptic stories are about survival, whereas I'd argue that Threads is about what survives. The characters don't choose survival, they don't choose to live, it's all pot luck. We don't have one lone strong-willed protagonist on a quest to achieve something, like in films such as Children of Men. We just have a society that's beginning to crumble. There are no winners in a nuclear war. One of the most chilling scenes comes when the elected officials, sealed away safe in their bunker, begin arguing over where supplies should be sent. Voices are raised, tempers flare, human life is reduced to statistics, numbers on a page, percentages of survival. They shout over one another about food, medicine, and manpower, not in terms of compassion, but efficiency.
What's the point of wasting food on people who are going to die anyway?
Who can still work? Who might recover? Who isn't worth the resources? Entire groups of people are dismissed in seconds. Later in the film, these same conversations take place again, but this time, the shouting's reduced. It's colder. Less human. One of the quotes that really sticks out to me is, "Should we be bothering to keep anyone alive if they can't work?" The slow dehumanization of nearly every character in the film is just, it's appalling. Another scene that's just etched into my brain is when Ruth finally leaves the house, moves through the smog and soot, and the devastation isn't just physical, it's human. Everywhere she looks, the breakdown of society is mirrored in the breakdown of people. Mothers search desperately for their children. Children wander alone in confusion. Men scavenge like wild animals, eating metal tin cans. Pets lay dead in the street. One quiet moment hits even harder. An elderly man sitting amongst the ruins, playing with burnt action figures. Is it the memory of a dead son? Is it comforting to remind him of his childhood? Is it a fragile attempt to reclaim the world he lost? The film doesn't answer. It just leaves you wondering, what situation were all these people in? And then the most disturbing image of this whole sequence. A mother cradling a long dead baby in her arms. She doesn't cry. She doesn't scream. There are no tears, no outward agony, just a vacant, empty expression. The human part of her has gone. All hope, all connection, all recognition of life and death has vanished. In that moment, she isn't a mother anymore. She isn't really a person at all. Threads shows not just the end of life, but the complete erosion of humanity itself. After the bomb, the film becomes increasingly detached. Dialogue fades, characters lose names, time jumps forward without warning. Years pass in seconds. Language itself, the language of the film, begins to fall apart. More and more statistics come up on screen, grounding the film in reality once again. Children grow up, barely being able to speak. Social structures regress. Violence becomes casual. Education disappears. Compassion soon follows. And then we reach one of the film's more disturbing ideas. Not that nuclear war kills millions, but that it unravels the threads of humanity so thoroughly that meaning itself collapses. There truly is no hope in this film. Sure, there may be films with more graphic violence on screen than Threads. There may even be films with more shocking imagery. But I find Threads particularly disturbing because, unlike films, as I mentioned, Children of Men, there is no glimmer of hope at the end. It refuses to comfort you in any way. There's no metaphor, no allegory to soften the blow, no monster you can safely separate from the world we live in. If there is any hope in Threads, and I'd like to try and be a little bit optimistic in this video, it's not found within the film itself. It's found within the fact that it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened to us, to you watching. This film exists as a warning, not of what might happen, but what will happen if we let it. It's the best anti-nuclear war film that's ever been made, and it does make me wonder, what would a film like this set in 2025 look like? Back then, there were bunkers, civil defence plans, ration books, all left over from the Second World War. But now, we don't have that infrastructure. No preparation, no shared understanding of sacrifice, an even more divided political climate than ever before. Honestly, I think we'd cope worse than the people in Threads did. While Threads is rooted deeply in scientific fact, I do have to wonder whether its portrayal of human behaviour is truly accurate. Time and time again throughout history, humans have persevered through crisis after crisis. During the First and Second World Wars, people banded together to survive. The very city depicted in Threads, Sheffield, was bombed night after night, yet people chose to remain calm and carry on. It's so common for fiction to depict human nature as inherently evil or inherently selfish, but is that really the case? Books such as Lord of the Flies adhere to this, presenting a vision of schoolboys stranded on a desert island, who, because they're human, descend into savagery and violence, similar to the way that we see people lose their identity in Threads. But after reading the book Humankind by Rutger Bregman, this isn't sponsored by the way, it's just a really good book, I became aware of a real-life incident in which this Lord of the Flies situation actually happened, and the outcome was vastly different. The boys didn't turn feral or kill one another, instead they formed a small society, worked together, resolved conflict civilly, and ultimately survived. The complete absence of hope in Threads carries great dramatic weight, but I'm not entirely convinced that it's realistic to the human spirit. Many critics of the film at the time, and journalists, were also asking what purpose does the film serve, other than to just depress its audience?
Is there not a sense in which programs like this, while seeking to alert the populace, succeed mainly in paralysing the will? It was not clear if the point of Threads was to frighten or inform.
As ordinary citizens, there's nothing we can do to stop a nuclear attack. The power lies with those in authority. They're the people with their fingers over the big red button. In that sense, we are powerless. Does a film like Threads achieve anything beyond instilling fear and a sense of hopelessness? Well, I'd argue that it has a greater purpose. Rather than being a fully accurate depiction of human nature, Threads functions as a cautionary tale. It's a timeless film. Sure, it's made in the 80s, but it still hits just as hard then as it does now. In a world where nuclear attacks are reduced to memes and clickbait headlines, it forces you to feel the thing that most of us, including myself, before watching this film, had trained ourselves not to feel. By presenting the darkest possible outcome, it warns audiences of what happens when humanity fails. It strips away the irony. It strips away the distance, and it leaves you with a truth that's very hard to live with. Nuclear war isn't dramatic, it isn't heroic, it isn't cinematic. Threads doesn't belong to the past. It's a film that should be seen by everyone. If you haven't watched it, go and check it out. I will not have done it justice just through talking about it. And once you've watched it, it really does leave you thinking. Is Threads, as I've concluded, a cautionary tale? Or am I just coping? Does it perhaps belong to a future that we keep pretending willfully isn't possible? Right up until the moment that it is. Well, that was quite an unusually heavy video for this channel. If you did enjoy, please do remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We talk about movies here. I may be delving into a couple more movies like this. I've been recommended The War Game, which I haven't seen, but apparently it's a lot like Threads. There's also a couple of other older cult films that I'd like to do videos breaking down. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully, the next video will be a little bit more cheery than this. All support's appreciated, hypes, likes, comments, etc. Cheers, thank you very much, and goodbye.